What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a picture of Rafael.
Heroes in a half shell, turtle power.
Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you basically, as well as drawing Rafael, we're going to be going through stage 1 of how to draw any figure. But stage 1 is basically learning to trace over the top of an image and find the basic shapes. So you can see I've put the picture underneath. If you can print out a picture that I've done, that'd be really good. If not, the shapes are going to be really simple. So if you see when I'm drawing this head, it's a nice simple shape. And it's pointing toward the left a bit more because that's the direction of his head. So next we're going to draw the shell part of his body. So on the picture, I'm just drawing it nice and simple. It goes a little bit wider at the bottom, down to where his belt is. It's basically just a rectangle. So we're just going to be really finding all the main shapes of the character. So this is his belt. You might want to do this bit on a window as well if you want to. So if you watch me do it first and then go and trace it over a window, that could be a good way to do it. Or if you just want to follow me and draw out these nice shapes. So that's like a W shape, and that's the bottom of his shell. Okay, so the top of his arms just going along there, and that's another rectangle. Try and draw that shape that I've drawn. If you want to make it more rectangular, you can do that. So next up, we're adding in his armbands or like pads. And we're going to add in his back shell. And we're going to sweep that right underneath because you can see it between his legs when we do the picture. Okay, his arms get fatter at the end, so I've got his thumb, and then they're going to be his 2 fingers, and then the rest of his arm. Feel free to pause the video, because obviously I'm going quite quick, but they are fairly easy shapes to do. So again here, his arm goes out nice and wide, and we're just getting in the basic shapes, and then I'm going to put in a big block. Whereas the handle of his weapon, his sai, will go. And on the right hand as well. Okay, so his leg, it gets wider as it goes out. And I'm just going to add a little squarish shape for his knee pad. And then his leg gets really wide as well. Okay, his other leg goes out nice and wide, and then I've just a little kink in it for his knee pad. And again, his knee pad's nice and square. You can start to see now it's starting to look like a turtle or like a proper figure. Okay, and then I've just done like for his leg, I've made it come down. And then it gets wider, and I've got a little kink in the bottom right where his ankle sort of would be. And then I've just done some nice swoop, quick lines for his side blades. Okay, so the top of his head just goes nice and curved. Just the very top. And then we're going to add in the mask, which goes up a little bit. And then where his eye is, and it dips back down towards the back of his head. And then I just put the back of his mask in, and then follow the nose line down, and it dips where a bit bigger where his eye is, and then goes to the back of his head. Okay, his eye, we're just going to do a little line down, and then a sort of an eyebrow shaped line for the top of his eye. And then this bit's a little bit smaller, and it fits inside the eye. So it looks a little bit like a diamond shape. Okay, so his nose, we're going to follow the line down, and then it curves in to make a triangle, and then it goes back up to his eye, and about the middle of his eye it curves back down to make a sort of sad face. And his chin goes down and follows the line we did earlier to the back of his head. Okay, you can leave it like that, but in the picture I've done, he's got his mouth open. So we're going to draw that bit in now by going from where the chin and the nose meet. We're going to go down and kind of make another diamond shape. And then a little line for his teeth. Okay, so next we're going to do his chest plate. So we're just going to do a little V and then follow the line to the corner. And then this bit's where his shell's been broken. And then do a little V about halfway up and then follow the line down again. And I'm going to just curve them out a little bit. So that's where I break away from our guideline. Okay, so when you're drawing these lines that show off his chest plate, they don't join up in the middle. If you want to, you could make them, but I think in the picture I looked at, they don't join up in the middle. Okay, so his belt is basically exactly where I put it, and then these lines on the bottom part of his shell just curve in, and it makes that same sort of W shape. Okay, so you can see if you pause the video how I've basically stuck to the lines, but I've just added a bit more of a curvature into some of it. Okay, so next up, let's do his arm. So we're going to do his shoulder, which is going to curve out. And then we're going to pop in his bicep, which is a bit longer, and it goes down all the way down to his pad. And then follow the next line, and it joins up with his shell. And then maybe stick a line in, just to show where his muscle in his arm is. And because it's stretched out, it won't be a big muscle. If his arm was bent, his muscle would be more rounded, but because his arm's stretched out, it's flatter. And then I've just put the arm pad in. Okay, so on the other side, we're just going to follow the line down and add a couple of bumps for where his neck meets his arm, and then his shoulder, and then the top of his arm muscle. And then I've also added in a little V underneath his arm where his shell connects. And then I'm going to do a swooping line where his armpit is, and then join that up to his arm muscle as well. Because his arm's slightly more bent, you're getting a bit more of a rounded muscle on his arm. And then next, add in the outer shell and put a little V in where it's had a little bit of a damage attack from Shredder. And then I'm going to add in some of the shade. Right, so you can see now I've added the curves in, it's looking much more like a turtle. And I add in an arm pad just like we did before. So when I'm doing the shell, I've just added that sort of jagged line, just because that's where the shadow's going to cast through. So this bit in between the two parts of the shell is going to be really dark in the shadow. And you can do like a wavy line or a jagged line in between, so about halfway in between. And then his arm gets nice and fat. So basically we're following the lines and we're just making them a bit more curved. This bit we're adding, he's got 2 fingers. And we're kind of following those lines round. And his thumb just tucks in behind the handle of his sai. And then add the little handle in. On the base of his sai there's like a big rectangle. When I'm doing the bandages, I'm making them nice and curved. so that it brings out the shape of his arm. It gives it a little bit of volume to his arm, so we can see that it's not just a flat shape, it's a curved, big, muscular arm. And then this side, make sure we get his thumb in, and then we're going to add his 2 fingers again. And then on his fingers he's got some bandages, so I'm just going to add those in. And then do the baseline along the bottom of his arm and just connect it up. And then again, when you're doing the wraps, make sure they're a little bit curved. And also don't just do straight lines like you would for a bumblebee. They can be a little, when you're doing wrapping around arms, you don't just go round and it ends up looking like a bumblebee. They crisscross, so they can go a bit zigzaggy like I've done on this one. And that'll help make it look more realistic. We're just going to add in a little bit of shell so it gives an idea where to put the leg. I'm making the top of his leg nice and curved, so again it makes you understand the shape that you're looking at. So if I just drew that straight, it's going to look like a flat image. Because I've given it a little curve, it's going to make the whole leg look more like a cylinder. And then again, as it comes down towards the knee pad, it's getting wider as we go down the leg. And then for the knee pad, I'm basically following the same shape because the shape I did was good. If your shape isn't quite how you like it, this is the time to change it. Don't just go over the tracing lines you've already done. If the tracing lines aren't quite correct, you can change it. Okay, so when we're adding the leg in, I'm following it down, but when we get to the bottom, I'm going to add in his toes. You might want to watch this bit first and then pause it just to follow along. And I'm not making his toes really complicated. I'm just going down and I'm going to add a little bit of shape to his toes just to make them look a little bit more toe-like. So it's really similar to how we did the Hedwig toes as well. We're just using those little curves. We're going to put a big swoop across where his bandages are. And then I'm just going to add a few little marks just to show where the tops of the toes are. Okay, on this side, because the leg's sideways on, it's going to appear much longer. So we're just going to follow that line out towards his knee pad. I've not really changed anything there. And again, I'm going to pop his knee pad in. And I haven't really changed anything. And then the strap on his knee pad's pretty much the same as well. So if you're doing any kind of drawing, if you want to copy a figure, a really good way to start learning how to do it is, this is like literally stage 1. You get a photocopy or print off a picture or from a magazine or anything you can, and then trace the basic shape out and then have a go at drawing all the details in yourself afterwards. You can do that for faces as well. It's a really good way to do it. Just mapping out the basic shapes and then, like we're doing here, just putting the details in. And I never did that because we were always told if you're tracing, it's like cheating and you're not learning anything. But actually you're learning loads. You're learning how to look at an object and find the basic shapes, which is the next step. You're looking at the object and you're finding the basic shapes and you're just drawing them without tracing. But you need to practice this way before you can move on to that second step. Okay, so I've just added the back of his shell in, so you can see this because it's between his legs, and also because we're kind of looking up at the character a little bit, you can see it poking through. And I'm just going to put all this bit in shade and then put a little bit of curved shade on his legs as well, and the inside of his shell, because we don't really know what's on the inside of his shell, so let's just make it black and we don't have to draw it. So next up we're going to do the tied bit of his mask, and that's going to be like blowing in the wind. And it's got I've got a little half circles cut out of it, and then it goes thinner towards the end. And that's just showing like maybe he's been in lots of fights, or it's the same bit of material he's used for ages, so it's taken some damage and it's got all ripped and torn. It shows all the battles he's been in. And all we're doing is making it thinner at one end and thicker at the other end, and maybe put a few like rip and tear marks in it. Okay, so next up we're going to do his side. You've got to make sure that where the base is, you've got to follow that line all the way through, and it's got to go straight through his hand without drawing it onto his hand, so that they line up. Otherwise you're going to look like you've got a bit of a wonky weapon. You don't want a wonky weapon. So just try and draw a nice straight line, really confident. Maybe do it in pencil first and then carefully go over afterwards. And then we're just going to put the handle or the prong bits of his sai in. So it kind of goes out and then up. It's not straight with the middle blade. It's a little bit edges out, so you can see it better here. And then just adding these next bits in. They kind of go like pretty flat, and then they spike out a little bit, and then they really stick out at the ends. Again, some of these trickier bits I'll do with a pencil first. Okay, so today I'm also going to colour it in, because we're going to have a little look at how to do some shading with your coloured pens. So it's probably a good idea, if you've got your coloured pens and it's got a lid on like mine have here, to check the colour before you use it, because sometimes the colour doesn't always match the lid. So it's nice to have a little bit of scrap paper, because you don't want to just think, oh, this is the perfect colour green, and then put it on your character and it's completely the wrong colour. It's too dark or it's way too light, because you can't change that then. So I always keep a little bit of scrap paper just to test the colours. Okay, so I'm going to put in the green layer. I've forgotten to put the little bits on his knuckles in, so I've added those in on his left hand. It's on the right hand as you look at it. So make sure you add those in, and I'm just going to colour down a nice light colour green all over his body to start with. Okay, and then I'm going to add on the reds. So you can see I've just tested the colour again, so it doesn't go all wrong. And then I'm going to add on the brown bits and the gold bits and the yellow bits. So here I'm just adding on the yellow for his shell. I'm just getting all the main plain colours down, and then we're going to start adding a few shaded areas. So you can see all the shadow that we've done already is coming down onto the right and lower. So this arrow I've just drawn will represent the light, so it's like above him, and it's coming down, it's casting the shadows the opposite side of that light. So when we do our colouring, we're going to need to think about that as we do it. So if the light's coming this way, we're going to get some shadow underneath these crack bits on his shell. And then underneath his belt and around the side here. So all the shadows come in the opposite sides of where that light's coming. And then if you're not sure, you can always pause it at the end of the video and have a look at how I've done it and copy those bits, and that'll help you to start learning as well. I'm not amazing at this. This is something I'm still learning how to do. I can do the basic sort of shading. But when it comes to adding light and shading, it's quite tricky, and you have to have something to copy really. So here again, up where his shell is, I've just added the darker green, and then underneath his bandages, just the basic, where the basic shadows would be. It just makes it look a bit more like a 3D shape rather than a flat picture. Okay, and if you add in, like you saw I just did on his leg there, I've got it curves up towards his leg, so it just makes that leg look a little bit more like a cylinder. And then on his bicep, so his bandages are far too white, so we're just going to add a little grey. Again, I'm just going to test it out to make sure it's not too dark. And you can, if you've got grey, you can always add it onto other parts as well. We're going to add it to the opposite side of where our light source is. And anything we think might cast a shadow, we'll add it on there. So along the bottom of his arm, where the light's not going to catch. And then maybe on his eye and on his teeth. And then maybe just to darken up a few of these bits, we'll add it over the top as well. Right, that is the end of the video. Give us a like. YouTube loves it when you do that. Comment below, who do you want me to do next? If you leave a comment, I'm much more likely to do something that you want me to draw. And also it gives me lots of new ideas to do as well. So someone actually asked me to do the turtle. Thinking about it now, I'm not sure if they just meant a normal turtle, but I did a Teenage Mutant Hero Turtle.
Heroes in a half shell, turtle power.
Because I like Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. Right, okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you soon. Bye.